For the first two periods of this hockey game, the Montreal Canadiens dominated. Unfortunately, in the third, Vegas brought it thanks to a couple of calls by the referee, and they tied the hockey game up. But lo and behold, an unlikely hero wins it in overtime. Habs come away with a 3-2 OT victory over the Vegas Golden Knights at the Bell Center. Let's talk some puck. Hey everybody, Costa here from PuckTalk Montreal. It is January 27th, 2026, and the Montreal Canadiens just got off the ice, 3-2 overtime winners over the Vegas Golden Knights. And while early on in this hockey game, everything looked like it was all roses for the Canadiens, it didn't quite finish up that way. A lot of us, including myself, biting nails thinking, oh my God, here we go again. But lo and behold, we had an unlikely overtime hero win this hockey game for us. So let's just dive right into the highlights. And it starts in the first period, not quite the way the Montreal Canadiens want, as Pavel Dorofeyev scores his first of two goals, in this hockey game, as he finds the top corner on a wrist shot on a play where Alex Carrier made another mistake. We'll talk about it a little bit later. There it is, over the glove of Dobes. I would have liked to see Dobes' glove a little bit higher as Dorofeyev's coming in. He's out far enough, but his glove's not high enough. Dorofeyev, got to give him credit. He picked the top corner. It was a beautiful shot. That made it 1-0 for Vegas. Fast forward to the second period, where it was Phillip Danault getting his second goal of the season on a flyby tip on a shot from the boards by Zach Bolduc. Bolduc picks up the puck off the kick plate, fires it, and Danault, as he goes by the net, deflects it down up into the corner, and that made it 1-1 at that point of the hockey game. Funny bounce over the blocker of Schmid, who was the goaltender in this game for the Vegas Golden Knights. That made it 1-1. Then about 4 minutes later, just over 4.5 minutes later to be exact, it was Cole Caufield's turn. After he had a goal disallowed because of an offside, after he hit the crossbar on the same sequence, Cole Caufield gets a gratuitous bounce that comes right to him at the side of the goal off a backhand by Noah Dobson. It squeaks through and he just tucks it in, as you'll see here on the second part of the replay, by Schmid to make it 2-1 Montreal. Now here's the fun part. At that point of the hockey game, after the second period, shots were even 20-20 between these two teams. In the third period, Vegas dominated the shot clock, 13-3. And a lot of it came from a couple of penalty calls. We'll review them a little bit later. But the Canadiens ended up coming into the third period on their heels, and they stayed that way throughout the period. And that led to the game-tying goal on a goal very similar to the one scored by Phillip Danault. It's a fly-by tip by Pavel Dorofeyev on a shot that comes from the blue line. He tips it up instead into the top corner, fooling Dobes, and that is where we ended up after regulation, 2-2. The Canadiens, they got a power play in overtime. Couldn't score at 4-on-3. We played a little bit of 4-on-4, and then an unlikely overtime hero. Nope, not Nick Suzuki. Nope, not Ivan Demidov. Nope, not Yuri Slafkovsky. And not Lane Hudson. Jake Evans with a power move, driving in as he gets a pass here from Texier along the boards. 2-on-1. He uses the decoy, drives the net, goes backhand on Schmid, putting it home and making the Canadiens winners in this hockey game. Here it is again, a beautiful move in tight. Uses his leg to shield the puck like Mama taught you when you were a kid on the ODR. And the Canadiens come away with a 3-2 win. Now it's time for my game report. And there's a few things I'm going to go through in this game report, starting with the good. Now, the good, of course, was, number one, the goaltending of Jakub Dobes. Other than the first goal where his glove was a little low, I'm not going to nail it on him because Dorofeyev took a very good shot on him and picked a corner from distance. In this hockey game, Dobes was outstanding. Finished with a .941 save percentage, 188 goals against, and honestly, probably one of his best showings of the season. He was poised, coming out beyond the top of the crease, stopping shots, just doing everything he needed to do. Yes, Vegas hit a goalpost, but they say the reason why you hit a goalpost because the goalie gives you nothing to shoot at. Anyway, goaltending, definitely not an issue in this hockey game. Jakub Dobes was outstanding. I don't think anybody will argue that point. Another guy who was outstanding, as always in this hockey game, is Cole Caufield, getting his 30th goal of the season, second straight year where he's had 30 goals. Plus, it's his 9th goal in 6 games. Quite the stretch for Caufield after a little bit of a lull in his production where he had a hard time getting past that 23 mark. All of a sudden, bing, bang, boom, here he is at 30 goals at the right time, just before the Olympic break when the Canadiens need him to score more often than not. You also have to give a little bit of credit to one of our defensemen. Not anybody in particular other than Arbor Xhekaj. You're going to say we didn't notice Arbor Xhekaj. That's my point. In a game where, I'm going to look at his ice time in a second, but in a game where, you're expecting mistakes from defensemen against a team that's as physical as the Vegas Golden Knights, Xhekaj did not stand out like a sore thumb. He had just 8:16 of ice time, but he was a +1. He played extremely well. I had no issue with his game. He deserves to get more minutes on the ice, and that, again, is going to come down to the fact that he's being mismanaged by Stefan Robida. Robida is the guy that gives out the ice time, okay? Having a guy play just 6:18, and to boot, in a situation where the defensemen were extremely tired, Xhekaj came onto the ice and filled in extremely well late in the third period to keep the game tied. I don't see a reason why you can't trust this guy. He made the right reads, made the right plays, was physical when he needed to, and that was pretty much it. It's exactly what you would expect from Arbor Xhekaj. Can he contribute more? If you give him more ice time, he probably could. But I don't know where this whole mental block is when it comes to the Canadiens and Arbor Xhekaj. But he deserves some credit because in the limited time that he had, he didn't stick out like a sore thumb. He didn't make any egregious mistakes. He played extremely well. Another defenseman that played one of his best games this season was Guhle. Of course, he takes that slash right to the stomach from Shea Theodore. But, you got to give Guhle credit. He was good offensively. He was good in his own zone. He was a catalyst. He was physical. He did all the things that we expect from Caden Guhle in a hockey game. So, big thumbs up from me when it comes to Caden Guhle in this hockey game. Thumbs down, Mike Matheson, Noah Dobson, Alexander Carrier. You guys need to learn to not pinch. Okay? The first goal that was scored against the Canadiens, there were a lot of people pointing at Demidov saying he made a mistake. Here's the mistake that was made. Carrier pinched when he didn't need to, and he put the puck into Demidov's feet, putting him in an impossible situation because there were 2 Vegas Golden Knights all over him. That puck should have gone in deep. Carrier should have remained in position. It shouldn't have become an odd man rush going the other way. Instead, he decided to be offensive, and it bit him in the ass. Dobson did it early in the first period. He didn't get caught, but you could see noticeably that he was pitching a little bit too much. When the Canadiens settled down in the second period, then you saw them play a little bit better brand of hockey where they weren't pinching as much and they played much more sound in their own zone, limiting what the Vegas Golden Knights could do. That's how they caught up on the shot clock because in the first period, the Golden Knights actually outshot the Montreal Canadiens. So, not by a very wide margin, just 2 shots, but still. In a game where the Canadiens dominated the possession of the puck, they should have had a better shot output. But because of their third period and the fact that they were backing off quite a bit, it left a little bit to be desired, and you knew that the Vegas Golden Knights were going to come back and tie this hockey game. Now, let's get to one of the big reasons why Vegas got a chance to put the Canadiens on their heels. And that comes with a little segment I call Ref, You Suck. Now, I didn't get all the video because the second penalty, I'll explain to you, it wasn't available anywhere. But I'm going to start with the Cole Caufield penalty late in, well, I wouldn't say late in the second period. When was that penalty called? Let me see here. It It was called at 16:34 of the second period. And that's where all of this began, right? So you get Caufield getting called for hooking on Mitch Marner. I want you to watch this. Tell me where you see a hook. So watch carefully. Do you see a hook? I don't see a hook. What? I don't understand sometimes, okay? And I'm going to get to more in a minute. As I described the second penalty that came to Oliver Kapanen, right? That was given out after the Canadiens had just killed a penalty to Lane Hutson for holding the stick. That, I think, is the only legitimate penalty in this game, okay, when it came to the Canadiens. And so, what happens? Oliver Kapanen tries to avoid Mark Stone at the blue line. They both jump to get out of each other's way. Somehow, some way, the referee sees this as interference. There's a certain level of game management that you want from a referee, right? When the game gets out of control, when the game is, a little bit overly physical and teams are taking too many liberties against each other. And I get that, right? There's game management. But this is absolutely egregious. I mean, I don't understand for the life of me, number one, how you call Caufield on a hook when he never even touched Marner with a stick. And then when two guys are trying to avoid a collision, you call one for interference? Why? Because it happened at the offensive blue line? That's garbage. Both guys are skating flat against the blue line. All of a sudden, oh crap, they dive out of each other's way, cap it in 2 minutes for interference. They never even touched each other. But you're giving an interference penalty. And we've seen quite a few of these phantom calls when it comes to the Canadiens lately. It's starting to get ridiculous when it comes to officiating in the league. And I've seen other games, and it's not just happening to the Canadiens. It's happening to other teams. So I don't know if there's a quota for penalties in a hockey game or whether or not the referees just want to have more importance than others. But wow. Just wow. It completely shifted the momentum of the hockey game. If you recall yesterday's show, when I said in the game preview that the Canadiens needed to keep the Vegas Golden Knights off the power play, well, guess what? 3 straight power plays for the Vegas Golden Knights put the Canadiens on their heels. Okay? Starting late in the second, Caufield, then Hutson, and then right after that, you get the penalty versus Kapanen. What more do you want? Why don't you just say, okay, you're going to win this hockey game, let's just stay inside and drink beer. Why play the game if you're going to do that as a referee? I find it ridiculous. There are referees that used to be in this league that had, what's the word I'm looking for? Integrity. Bill McCreary. Kerry Fraser. And I know he's not a fan favorite, but Kerry Fraser. Ron Hogarth. Don Kowarski. Mick Magoo. Dave Stewart. Bruce Hood. The list goes on and on. Andy Van Hellemond. How do we forget Andy? One of the best referees in NHL history. There were a lot of good officials. All of them make mistakes. But one thing that you can count on is that they wouldn't make as egregious errors as this crop of referees is making right now. And I think it's high time that during the Olympic break, the NHL have a meeting with their officials, pull them aside and say, guys, pull back your whistles a little bit because you're trying to take too much control of the hockey game. The game isn't decided by you. It's decided by the 12 guys that are on the ice. 5 players, 2 goalies at every given moment. If you're going to implicate yourself to give an advantage to another team because you want to be involved, then you have an issue. And so I don't know what more here. Well, my glasses, I'll give them to you. It's just gotten to a point where it's completely ridiculous. I don't know what more to say when it comes to that. I got to give kudos to the second line. I called them out in yesterday's preview show. They were quite visible tonight. They played extremely well. And the thing the Canadiens did do tonight versus the Vegas Golden Knights is they came out and they played a physical brand of hockey where they finished checks along the boards. They forechecked hard. They limited the time and space that the Vegas Golden Knights had, for the most part, with the puck. Third period, when they sat back and they didn't forecheck as strong, you saw the difference. It was night and day. But again, I'm not going to put too much of that on the Canadiens as a whole, because when you end up killing back-to-back penalties and momentum starts to shift, it's really hard to dig yourself out of that hole. They tried. It's not that they didn't give it an effort, but they didn't get enough shots on goal. They didn't have enough pushback, and Vegas just kept on coming. And the thing about the Vegas power play, despite the fact that, they really didn't score anything, is that Vegas power play plays with 5 forwards. Mitch Marner's the point man, right? He's the puck distributor, and it's still not producing. So, Canadiens did a good job penalty killing, by the way, tonight. Pressuring the puck, sticking on Jack Eichel, keeping him away from the middle of the ice, forcing him to the outside, takes away his game completely. And they did a masterful job on Eichel. Mark Stone, barely a thought in this game. If it wasn't for Dorofeyev and his 2 goals, really, Vegas had nothing to show for their effort tonight. Yes, they had a couple of great chances, and Jakub Dobes was there to make the saves when he needed to. But it's another example of what I talk about all the time. 2 goals or less, you're more likely to win the hockey game, right? The Canadiens don't get enough of those 2-1, 2-goal games. But if there's one thing that I want the Canadiens to change in this season before we hit the stretch run after the Olympic break, they need to get on their horse late in games and extend leads, not protect them. It's one of those things that we all, we say year after year after year. And in some cases, the Canadiens push hard. In other cases, they don't. And, a lot of that has to do with strength of schedule, because the Canadiens' schedule is a hell of a lot harder than most teams going down the stretch. And points are going to be extremely important as they make their way towards a playoff push. But I got to say that, if you're going to sit back and let the other team just attack you nonstop, you're not going to win. Okay, and it overtaxes your goaltending, it overtaxes your defense, it tires them out, and you're just going to leave yourself vulnerable to an opening to be able to let the other team score. There's got to be pushback. It's not about dumping the puck out and chasing it down. You've got to have possession of the puck. You've got to skate the puck up the ice. Use the middle, because since you dominated it all game. Even when Vegas pushed back, you forced them to the outside. There's something to be said there. You had control of the middle of the ice, and you just let Vegas hit you like a prize fighter, nonstop in the third period. The rope-a-dope worked for a while, but then, ultimately on a deflection, they tied it. Lucky to come away with 2 points in this hockey game, as we look forward to the Colorado game coming up on Thursday. That one's going to be a fun one to talk about. But I'll tell you this. You got to be proud of the Canadiens tonight. They showed a lot of resilience. They showed a lot of character. And they worked against a team that had more talent than they did. A lot of us didn't expect them to win tonight. Vegas odds makers had them as a 1.5 goal underdog versus the Golden Knights. The Canadiens didn't make the spread, but they did come out on top. So great on them. God knows what the spread's going to be versus Colorado, because Colorado can score in bunches, and they've got a lot of high-end talent. We'll preview that game in tomorrow's podcast. But for now, let's relish in the victory. We haven't had one in a while, at least a couple of games. Canadiens on the right side of the ledger, thanks to Jake Evans and Jakub Dobes. Good night, everybody. Go Habs, go.